Hello YouTube, welcome back over to GamingHouse, and I'm proud to bring you the review of The Division. It is a game that takes place in the Tom Clancy's universe. It is for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. It is published by Ubisoft and developed by Ubisoft. Massive, a little bit of Red Storm, and a little bit of other Ubisoft companies as well. Now, there should have been an image that's been up here for a little bit. Please do not take that as a sign of arrogance or anything like that. I'm just showing this image to show more or less my credentials. This is what I've been doing in the game. This is what I've done, etc. Now, let's get on to the game itself. The Division takes place close to modern times, and in this point in time, unfortunately, someone has taken a mutated strain of smallpox, attached it to a bunch of dollar bills on Black Friday, and has pretty much infected a large majority of the U.S., as far as we know, also possibly some of the world, with New York, Manhattan being ground zero. And during this time, of course, government collapses started to happen. A lot of the facilities run by governments have collapsed. Everything seems to be going pretty much to shit. And then that is where you come in. You are part of the second wave of agents activated, known as the Division. The Division is a sleeper cell agent program that has been implemented by the U.S. in the event of a government collapse. So in other words, if you're activated, shit has hit the fan, it has broken the fan, and the shit is everywhere. And since you're second wave, there's a lot of shit. Now, those expecting a driven story here are going to be disappointed. You're more or less dropped into this situation with little to no explanation of everything going on, something that I wish we had more of, in particular with the enemy factions. But it also makes sense in the way that you are technically an ordinary citizen until activation, and also, you're technically the solution to the problems of the story. You're supposed to be only coming in towards the end, and you are coming in towards the end of a story that is already taking place, which is expanded throughout all the collectibles in the game. Which, real quick, this is like the first game that I've ever wanted more cutscenes in, or more collectibles in. The collectibles in this game are just fun to listen to, in my opinion, fun to find, particularly echoes that detail an area of destruction or a story that has taken place in the areas. I never wanted more of those in a game until this game. There were so many areas in this game that I wish there was more echoes for, such as a whole block that has been decimated, look like it's been hit by napalm. Tons of carnage that is within the dark zone that I wish there were echoes there as well. The collectibles in this game are actually probably going to make you want to go out and collect them to find out and hear more about the story. Now, the story structure as well as mission structures are pretty damn simple. Show up, shoot a bunch of people, leave, go on to the next one. You'll start off with, they're kind of unique, but then you realize pretty soon that all the encounters and everything else is pretty much you're in a new environment, shooting up possibly new people or a mix of people, which can get a bit dull if you're one of those people that can get irked by just doing almost the same thing every time. Another aspect of the game is, of course, its enemies. You'll start off with several different factions of enemies, each getting progressively more different and more aggressive and having different tactics as well as different groups within it. You have your basic riders who are trash. They don't have a whole lot to offer other than basic like gunning and running at you with baseball bats. You have your cleaners, who are a bunch of guys that have flamethrowers that believe that the only way to defeat the virus is to annihilate anyone that shows any form of sickness, as well as completely burning down anything that had like anything to do with the infection. You have the Rikers, which is a group of escaped criminals and other minor criminals that have been recruited into their group that have pretty much decided there's no government, there's no one stopping us, it's basically the purge for them. And last but not least, you have the Last Man Battalion, or LMB, which is a PMC group that has pretty much been left behind there and have decided, you know what, everyone kind of sucks at their job right now, we're going to declare our own martial law and do our own kind of thing. Which, total fascism in full force and shooting people who don't agree with them. Now, the joys about this faction is also the joy of this game, in that as you find more collectibles that talk about these factions, you come to think that this is all very plausible. You can kind of see this happening if a scenario like this were to occur. And I think that adds to the charm of The Division, is that this is all very plausible. The story seems very plausible. Now that we've gotten some of the more story aspects out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some of the other things real quick. The graphics in this game, I forgot to mention, if you're at this point, I apologize, I'm starting to remember to say this at the beginning, but of course I play on the Xbox One. This is the Xbox One version I've been playing and what you've been seeing the random gameplay of, because I leave this Thursday. So this is more of a quick and done video, no special showing off of stuff there. Back on course though, the graphics in this game are pretty as hell. The aesthetics that you expect from a Tom Clancy tactical kind of game is there as well. The sound is also there. The guns all sound fantastic, whether it's from close range shooting to being in the dark zone, hearing gunfire from another block away or so, wondering who's shooting at who, whether it's enemies engaging each other or whether it's people. But also, now let's go ahead and get into a little bit talking about your character yourself, the one that you create. You're able to create multiple characters. Why you would create one is unsure unless you had to play with other friends. But don't expect Skyrim-style customization here. You'll be sorely disappointed. The customization options are not really there, except for in clothes, which there are plenty of clothing options to wear for the aesthetics. But in retrospect, also with the Division, is you're technically supposed to be between, mid 25s to 35s for your character, so don't be expecting to make your animu character with ridiculous hair and everything else involved, or the Joker. Now, one particular feature in this game that is definitely worth discussing a little bit, which works as a double-edged sword for it. You're going to love it or hate it, or love it and hate it like I do, and that is how this game scales its missions. Now, if you're playing with more than one person, you're going to notice that during these missions, you're going to have an influx of enemies to shoot at, which is cool. That adds to it. If you're playing with more people, you're going to have more people to shoot at, so you're not just plowing through the mission. However, if you're playing on, say, hard mode, which is something I recommend, by the way, because if you're especially playing with a group, you're going to plow through normal mode real easily. Playing on the harder difficulties will scale the level to the highest person. So if you got someone who's like a level 15 and you're level 8, all the enemies are going to be like level 15s, which puts them above your level, which sucks. If you have friends who are lagging behind because, well, they have lives and everything else, they're going to be slacking behind you, and fortunately you might not have the ability to play with them because you kind of might be ruining the experience by putting them in very difficult situations where they are practically useless. Now, the final piece of this puzzle of review is the Division's Dark Zone. The Dark Zone and the story element is this area that was quarantined off. That was the ground zero of ground zero, pretty much. And it's become a lawless area because the JTF have backed out of it. There's no rule, no surveillance, no nothing in there. Now, this serves as an area that you can run into other players, and instead of trying to meet up to squad up, you can end up trying to kill each other. And that adds to the charm of the Dark Zone, is that you don't know who to trust in there. The proximity chat in it sucks balls, unfortunately. So you might not be able to effectively communicate with people like, hey, I'm no threat, I'm just trying to get my gear out. But also, you might just run into people who don't care and will try to kill you for your loot anyway. But people that know me and people that may have seen a few things on the channel, which, by the way, check out the channel, help a brother out. I am more PvE oriented, or at least I prefer PvE as opposed to PvP, and I found myself still quite enjoying the Dark Zone because of the tense moments that it creates, the atmosphere that it also just creates. Like, when you see other players at an extraction zone, it's 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a Mexican standoff. You're all going to be staring at each other awkwardly, aiming occasionally. Maybe someone will try to pass off an emote to let each other know that we're friendly. But other than that, it's always you're going to treat any other people you see in extraction point with borderline hostility. Now, it's also worth noting that while you can PvP in this area, that doesn't mean that this is the designated area for your team deathmatches. That is not exactly what the Dark Zone is for. The Dark Zone is meant as a place to get great loot. It is technically also the end game of the Division once you finish all the story-related elements and the side quests and the collectibles. This is where you're supposed to kind of spend the rest of your game. unfortunately, for some of those that may not be interested in it. And that is, therein lies the problem with the Division's current endgame status. Now, they have already laid out a year one plan. Whether you want to see that as skeptical of cut content or content held back, that is up to you as the player or viewer. But until next month, where they release incursions, which are supposed to be kind of high-level, difficult missions, on top of the challenging modes that are available for the game, which will up the difficulty of the AI as well as put them all at gold level enemies and put them at 32s, which is something I don't like. That's artificial difficulty. You're purposely handicapping me in a way that I cannot combat. But the end game is the Dark Zone, so if you're someone that's not interested in the Dark Zone at all, you're not going to have really anything to do in the game once you complete all the single player co-op related material that's in the game. Now, there's a few things on my mental list left to talk about before we get into the bad part of the game. And that is, first off, co-op. This game is extremely fun and obviously oriented around co-op. Not saying you can't play through everything in single player. You can, and you will have a fun time as well, a challenging time. The Dark Zone is definitely not a place I'd recommend to be if you're a solo player. Luckily, there's plenty of social options. There's matchmaking before missions. There's matchmaking in each and every safe house to where you can try and find players to team up with and possibly friend and go on these quests or story missions, slaughters, Dark Zone raiding, whichever you want to do in this game. But that is definitely where the game truly shines, because you get to mix up the variation of skills. You get to have other players that bring their own play styles. Of maybe you have someone that wants to use an LMG, lay down a bunch of suppressing fire, while other players go around and flank. Or pretty much half my people now use marksman rifles to help deal out heavy damage to targets they see. But this game truly shines in the co-op aspect. The other thing to talk about is the servers and the online status? Not status. The online of the game, let's just say, because I can't find better words. Now, despite a rocky midnight release where it was very bad across the board because they got massively overloaded, in general the game has actually been pretty well online. I live in the central area of the US where we've been having some storms, so we've been having some difficulties now for yesterday. I haven't tried playing yet today to get the gameplay, hopefully, but hopefully it turned out well and you're enjoying some gameplay that's not rehashed from my playthroughs. But back to the point at hand, and that is, if you get disconnected for any reason or leave for any reason, you are put right back where you were if you join within a considerable amount of time. If you get disconnected from your friends, say, I had a scenario where I had a circuit breaker flip, so I had enough time to go downstairs, flip the breaker, come back upstairs, wait for the Xbox to turn on, reconnect to the internet, and load up to Division. I was put right back with my group, right where we were. If you were dropped for any point or reason, you are dropped right back where you were. That is really a great feature of this game, and I don't know how they achieved such a thing due to my lack of knowledge in that particular area of gaming development, but that is fantastic, and I love it. I'm pretty sure other people love it as well. Now then, let's go ahead and get into some of the bad things about this game. Now, the bad things about this game that I haven't already alluded to or hinted to are glitches and bugs in the game. There are quite a few glitches and bugs in the game. Nothing game-breaking, but all of them very annoying. There is things such as falling through the floors. I've had that happen once through a very hard glitch to happen with the JTF essentially pushed me through the floor. I've had friends that have fallen through the floor. There is various times where sound and audio will cut out on weapons and dialogue, which is very irritating. All fixable by just quitting out the game or logging out of the game and coming back in, but it's, of course, very annoying. Who wants to just take a moment and like, alright, I guess I gotta take a minute here to go back out of my game and go back into the game to fix this shit. Now, the last one for me, and it's more of a personal thing, is apparently upon activation, your agent is sworn to never speak again. That's right, we're back to a silent protagonist. Something I didn't think we'd see again in 2016, but I guess it's still there. That's more of a personal point that I also just wanted to point out, that your character does not speak at all. But let's go ahead and move on. That is pretty much all I have to say about the game. I might have missed some points. I am just me after all, so that's bound to happen. I am human. Let's go ahead and get onto the score. As always with my reviews, I score on a 1 through 10 basis, 5 being the middle ground of it's okay, it's meh, middle ground, not necessarily bad. Now for this game, I wanted to score it higher than what I'm about to score it, but I couldn't let some of these bugs and other things that I've been encountering slide per se. And that is, I give this game an 8.5 out of 10. I forgot to mention that with my reviews. If it's a 0.5, then that means I felt like it's higher than what it should be, but it's not high enough to warrant the next area. I don't do like a 0.3 or 0.4 or 0.7. So I rated a 8.5 out of 10 for my scale. I'd say definitely pick it up. If you've got a group of friends that want to play a game together, it's definitely a fun game in co-op. If you want to wait and see what comes out of the endgame content, feel free. This is a game that you can liken to Destiny, so if you're a Destiny player, you're probably going to like this game. I believe several of the Destiny YouTubers have moved on to this game to try it out. It is a shoot 'em up, loot 'em up game. I'd say you definitely get at least your money's worth currently. There's at least a fun adventure in store for you and your friends along the way. I don't think they expected people to go hard on the paint as people have been doing and getting through a lot of content, already reaching max rank in both the Dark Zone and the story. But that'll do it for this video. As always with GamingHouse, if you're on your way out, go ahead and leave a like. Maybe leave some feedback about what you thought about the review. Check out the channel, see what you like. I have a Division gameplay up. It finally got up after a long wait of belated days of me losing my life to the Division. Maybe check those out. Check out what other games I've played and put up, other reviews. And if you like what you see at GamingHouse, maybe go ahead and subscribe. And as always, welcome back over to GamingHouse for gameplay and commentary.